Okay, so one of the biggest things I'm looking at next for the Mac Mini was, other than speakers, which I did mention in this last video I posted, was a dock of some sort. So my requirements for the dock would be to have something that has USB ports on the front, a SD card slot on the front also. Ideally, if it could have a mini SD port on the front, that would be awesome, because then I could use my drone memory cards and my GoPro memory cards and that just without having to use the adapter. Great, that would be awesome. And then on the connection to the Apple Mac Mini, I also wanted a high-speed connection so that if there happened to be an M.2 SD card slot in the dock, I could use it as expandable storage. So all these are the things I kind of was looking for. I was looking at the big dock, I think is coming from Cytec, and that was the dock that I was considering as an option. But I had somebody reach out to me, and they asked if they could send me one to try out. So here we have it. It arrived today. The Minisopuru. It is a dock made specifically for the Mac Mini M4 and M4 Pro. So it's the Minisopuru. What was the name of it? Mini4PRO. That's the name of it. See if I can get that on the screen. Yeah. So as you can see in here, it does include an SD card disclosure. It does support 4K 60Hz screens. It does support 3 USB-A ports. It has a 35mm jack. Oh, that's another thing I wanted. And then both micro and regular SD card slots. That was the other thing I wanted, was an external, a rear-facing speaker jack, so that I could plug in the new speakers, hopefully at some point, into the back, so I don't have that on the front of the dock. Okay, now we'll go select the new drive. And this is the drive going through the Mini. I keep missing the name. This is going through the drive that is inside the Minisopuru dock, connected through USB-C. Right at 1,000. Right at 800. So it's about equivalent to what we were getting with the external SSD drive that I had. That's just a portable drive I was using prior to this. So no loss in performance. Overall, it seems to be pretty good. Now, as I mentioned before, let's run this test now using this ATTO tool instead. Okay, now we're going to go through and choose a different disk. Let's do the Extreme, which is the external SSD drive. Can I remove this one, or do I? I'm going to add the other one. We'll see if it just does test on all three of them at the same time. So this does give us a rough idea of this external drive. It seems to be very consistent, and when it peaks out at the fastest it can go, it's running roughly 900 read and 1,000 write on the disk. Hopefully this provides you a little bit more information on how well this dock performs and things that you can expect. Okay, now I've spent about a week with the dock, connected, in use, and I have a few additional thoughts I thought I'd add with this video so that you have a pretty complete picture of how I feel about the whole thing. So first, it fits well with the design. It's very similar in design, it's got the same shape, it's very minimal, and it fits really good with the overall size. And so I like it. It fits well on the desk. However, the SD card slots I'm realizing are difficult to use when they're that close to the desk. They're kind of hard to get in and hard to get out, especially because it's a micro SD card that I mostly use. It's a tiny little card trying to get in the slot. If I use the adapter, the SD card adapter instead, that might work better. But the point is, it's got a micro SD card slot. I want to use the card slot without having to use an adapter. That's the whole point. So you do have to lift it up because of the way my desk is built. You can't just, it's a little awkward. Usable, totally fine. I can totally use it. It's just, it's not ideal. We'll say that. Okay, 3. It does use a USB-C port to connect to the Mac Mini. And my observation, and I also gave this recommendation to Minisopuru directly, that if we had a USB-C port on the back of the dock, it would allow to be more of a pass-through device instead of it taking up a port. It's a little bit even more difficult with the Mac Mini because it's plugged into a not only just a USB-C port, but a Thunderbolt 5 port. So you're using a Thunderbolt 5 port for a much slower connection than you would get if you had a Thunderbolt 5 device. We don't have very many of those available right now. So it's not that big of an issue yet. However, I can probably see myself in the future getting a Thunderbolt 4 or 5 dock to use instead, potentially. I don't know, or maybe with it. I don't know yet, but just something to consider as well. Installing the M2 drive was super simple, and you hooked it up, plugged it in, immediately it started working. No issues whatsoever. That's been great. It showed up on Mac, it showed up as a drive, and I have access to it, and I can use it right away. So no big deal there. One thing I do want to say, though, about the drive is that the speed connection was not quite what I was expecting. Now, it's not bad, because it's running about the same as what I had before, which was connecting one of these SanDisk drives, and I was actually editing right off these drives, and I used this to copy a lot of my graphics and video content. I use it to store, offload, that's the word I'm looking for. I use it to offload the media so that I don't have it sitting on the drives in the machine. So I've been using that to edit straight off of, and it works great. It works really fine. There's no issue there. So what I am getting, as we showed in the testing that you would have watched right before this, is that I'm getting about 1,000 megabits per second in transfer speed. Well, I talked to Minisopuru about this, and they helped me better understand how the math works and all the connections, and understanding the terminology, in case you don't know this already. But the connection from the dock to the Mac Mini is a 10 gigabit per second connection, which means it transfers 1,250 megabytes per second. So in our tests, it was accurate. It reflected the expected performance based on the information. So since the Mac Mini supports Thunderbolt 4, which is a 40 gigabit per second connection, and Thunderbolt 5, which is an 80 gigabit per second, did I ever say that right? Yeah, gigabit per second, up to 120 gigabits per second boosted mode. If you use a dock that supports those standards, you could expect higher transfer rates, somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000 megabytes per second for Thunderbolt 4, or 10,000 megabytes per second. Did I get that one right? Yeah, I did. No, megabytes. Yeah. So you can see where the problem might lie in that. My drive that I put in this machine, which is the Samsung 990 Evo Plus, which has a transfer rate of 7,250 megabytes per second. The most I'm going to get using this dock with this drive is still going to be around 1,000 megabytes per second. If I put this drive in a dock that supports Thunderbolt 4, I will get 5,000 megabytes per second. If I put it in a dock that supports Thunderbolt 5, I'm going to get the 7,250 megabytes per second transfer rate that the drive is capable of. So just want you to be aware of that. You're not going to get the same performance out of this as you would Thunderbolt 4. Of course, that's obvious. You would expect that change, but that was my testing came out. It looks like it's running right at where it was expected. Minisopuru confirmed that this does meet their expectations of what this device is capable of. I also want to say I did some testing with temperature on the device. I was concerned. At one point, I noticed when I was doing some video editing that The temperature was getting up a little bit, and I wasn't quite sure how high it was getting up before I put it on the dock. So I did some side-by-side comparisons, and it wasn't adding at all significantly to the temperature by having it on the dock. So it appears it's not inhibiting any cooling, and it looks like it runs pretty cool. I mean, it's not any different than it would if it was just sitting on the desk directly. That may change depending on your situation, but from my quick testing there, I haven't seen any issues there. And lastly, I mentioned that I had considered the Cytec Mac Mini M4 stand and hub as one that I thought about getting to do the same type of hub setup. Well, I'm actually glad I didn't do that, because this unit is actually better than that for 3 reasons. One, it has an audio jack out port on the back, which I had forgotten to use and to plug into when I was doing all my video testing and everything. And after I was doing the edits, I'm like, you know what? I haven't plugged in. I can plug in my speakers I use for my Windows machine, because I'm not using my Windows machine anymore, hardly at all. Let me plug that in, and it worked great. You do have to select the speakers when you're going out for that, as it's not considered an internal device. So that's just one thing there. 2, it has the micro SD card slot. Although it is kind of a little difficult to get to, but it has that slot, and you don't have to use the micro SD adapter. And 3, it has an HDMI port on the back, which I am using for my second monitor. So those are 3 things I would not have gotten with the Cytec. Cytec, I guess it's called. And it's the same price. So seems like a good option for me, at least in this situation. So overall, it does everything it's advertised to do. I'm going to continue using it, and I will use it until I have the need to either add or upgrade to like a Thunderbolt dock or a Thunderbolt additional hub or something like that at some point. We'll see and take it when we get to that point from there. So I appreciate you watching this video, and I hope you got some information out of this. If you have any questions or any comments, feel free to put those below. I would love to answer those or do whatever I can to help you out. Also, if you're interested in purchasing one of these docks, Minisopuru has kindly provided me with a code for my viewers to get an additional discount on your purchase. And I'll put those in the description below. Be sure to check out my other videos like the one on the Mac Mini, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.